This is Season 4, Episode 19 of my modular journey, and today I am just going to make a ton of noise with the After Later Audio Benjolin V2 module. Benjolin came in at the beginning of March of 2024. It cost around $325 at the time, and it is described as a chaos machine. So, what does that mean? Something like that. After Later Audio Benjolin 2 is a eurorack module that builds on the Hordijk original design of the Benjolin circuit, offering this unique blend of analog synthesis and chaotic modulation. This module is renowned for its ability to generate complex, evolving textures, making it a favorite among experimental musicians and sound designers. That's a script I wrote. To be honest, I have no idea what this thing does. It makes a lot of noise. I have not been able to really make it very musical, except for maybe some of those bits you just heard, which musical could be questionable, I guess. So this is going to be a little bit of a different format than I usually do for these videos because I don't really know a whole hell of a lot about Benjolin. I just know that it makes a ton of noise. And that's kind of exactly what we're going to do today. We're just going to make a ton of noise. But before I make noise, I want to talk about at least the panel like I usually do. At least my best understanding of it. So what you have over here, starting with the left, is you have two identical oscillator circuits. This is the tuning of the oscillator or the speed of the oscillator. Here are these two speed knobs. There's a Rungler circuit in the middle, which comes from what's being rungled here. We'll get to that in a second. There are these two pots here, these little pots here that behave differently, two different ways. I'll talk about that also in a moment. And then each one of these oscillator channels has a triangle or a pulse output. And I'll show you that as well in a moment. So here's triangle 1, pulse 1, triangle 2, pulse 2. So that's the oscillator circuits here. Way over here is also a pulse width modulation output, which does exactly what you would think it does. It puts out a pulse wave. So I'll demonstrate all these sounds here as I go. In the center is the Rungler, which I believe is the heart of Benjolin, the thing that makes all these other Rungler knobs do something. And you can kind of think of this like a shift register, kind of like the Turing Machine by Music Thing, or Alan by After Later Audio also has a Turing Machine. And at the center, it is constantly randomly generating patterns. And then if you like a pattern, a 16-step pattern, you can clock it all the way to the right here and lock those in. Or if you roll it to the left, it is a 8-step pattern that is locked in place. And then all the variants in between, kind of exactly like the change knob on a Turing Machine. Below that are, these are new. I think I understand these are new to Benjolin version 2, and that is that, like I just said, it's an 8 to 16 step here, depending on which side of this dial you're on. Or you can now do 127 steps. I don't even know what that means, but I'll challenge you to count the steps to make sure that's accurate. And then off to the right here is also a rate switch. The rate is either clocked at single or it's double rate. And I don't really know what that does. I think it might have something to do with this rate CV input here, but we'll experiment with that if I remember. Below that is the output. Anything that's a gold, surrounded gold like this is an output. So this is a Rungler output, and this is, again, like the Turing Machine where it's outputting whatever its shift register is. So before I move on, let's talk about these other Rungler options here. So once you get your pattern that you like, or if you just constantly regenerating patterns, these knobs here will then introduce a portion of this Rungler circuit into oscillator 1, oscillator 2, or over here with a filter. So there's a third Rungler knob over here. And all of this sounds better if you're actually hearing what it's doing. So let me explain the last section here. Oh, I guess I forgot to say there's a steps CV here, which I believe is how you can change this from whatever 8 to 16 or 127. I think you can change whatever it really is with voltage here. I haven't tried that. I don't really know what that does because I can't count that high. and of course a rate input. And then there's a clock here. So the clock is another important thing to talk about. So you can externally clock Benjolin with this jack here, because in this layout, the second oscillator, this one here, is actually the clock speed of the Rungler, like the whole module and what's going on internally. This is the clock speed. You can see my Morcom lit up when I raised the speed. So this is the speed of the module, or you can clock it in here. So that's kind of cool too. This section up top here is a filter. So this is just your standard filter. I'm not sure what kind of filter, like state variable, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what it is. It has cutoff and resonance. It is a self-resonating filter when you raise it up all the way. Below here is, we could do external audio in. So you could either take its own audio in or something else in your rack and stick it in here. And then you could balance it between the external signal and then its PWM. So again, this pulse wave modulation circuit here. And that gets some pretty interesting sounds, I think anyway. So there's that, and then of course there's a Rungler for this circuit here. Oh, this is the filter frequency cutoff frequency and its attenuator. Down below here, we have our typical multi-mode. We have high pass, band pass, and low pass for whatever's coming out of this filter circuit. And those audio outs are completely different than the triangles here. There's even an XOR out, which again, I don't really know what that's doing. It might have something to do with like how it generates all these crazy patterns over here. Here's a great segue into the final piece, and that is the fact you might recognize these two little 4 HP modules over here. This is the Enigma and the Morcom. And these I bought with the Alan Turing machine a couple of years ago because they're expanders for that. And in the old Turing world, Enigma is the volts expander and Morcom is the pulses expander. And they're shrunk down to 4 HP, so they're nice and small. But they can not only be used with Alan Turing, they could also be used with the Benjolin here in much the same way. Because again, we have a little mini Turing machine right here in the center. So you'll see the pulses are being affected by not only the clock here, but also the pattern generator. So if I lock it in, you can see it's going to repeat the same 8 over and over and over. I guess it would sound better if I actually made audio. So let's do that. Let's plug in some audio. And I want to start with the oscillators. I want to take a triangle 1 and a triangle 2. I'm going to take triangle 1 into your left ear, and I'm going to take triangle 2 into your right ear. And right now you can't hear anything because they're super low, super low frequency. I do have them coming through data here, but I don't know that I'm going to refer to this too much, because this stuff moves pretty quick. All right, so in your left ear, you can now hear the triangle coming in. Oh, I got crackling on my pots. And now in your right ear, we'll do the same. All right, so there's about as close as I can tune them, because they're very sensitive knobs. And that is what the triangle pulses, or the triangle waves sound like. If I switch these over to pulse, put these over in pulse, cover your ears, it might be a little louder. So that's what the pulse wave sounds like. So starting again with the triangle here, I think I'm gonna, let me actually start with just one of these guys. Let me start right here with triangle 1. So what we have here, I'm going to skip a Rungler for a moment. I'm going to jump down here to these little pots. So these little pots are cross modulation, I believe is what they're doing. So when you turn up this pot here, it's taking some of whatever's going on, you know, it's taking some of this oscillator's signal and modulating it into the first oscillator. So that sounds kind of something like this. And again, this is a proportion of, so it's an attenuator. It's how much you want. When you start getting higher, it starts getting crazy. And you can see here on data what it looks like. But now the real crazy part is that there's a second pot over here on the second channel. So what is that guy going to do? That guy is going to now take what's going on in here in oscillator 1 and mix it back into oscillator 2, which then of course is also mixing itself back into oscillator 1, so you wind up in this absolutely chaotic feedback loop. And that's what's I think that's where Benjolin gets its charm. And of course, everything is affected by the speeds of the source oscillator and the destination oscillator. And once they get up to a certain speed, they just start sounding absolutely insane. And I really feel like this is where all of the magic of Benjolin comes in. Again, I don't see this as being a musical oscillator necessarily. Like, you're not going to play a tune off this, because from what I understand, these CV inputs are not volt per octave anyway. So what you get is just this absolute background chaos. All right, anyway, so where was I going with this? What I want to do now is I'm going to take the pulse sound. So the pulse sounds like this, a little sharper. Oh, I haven't done the Rungler yet. So now if we start rungling, again with this clock speed going, this is, as you see over here by the pulses, this is generating voltages in a shift register as fast as this clock is going. So now if I bring up my Rungler for the first channel, you can kind of see it going with the patterns. And remember, this channel is affecting this channel, and this channel is affecting this channel in a crazy loop. So the more you twist this, and the more chaotic you make it, the more chaos you're going to get. Until you're off the charts. And if you throw a little reverb on that, I mean, it really depends on what you want to do and how much you want it to affect. So you could probably get some interesting interesting effects going on here. Again, I'm locked into a pattern here, so it's going to just repeat that until I unlock it. Or twist some of these knobs to change things. or use the Morcom and Enigma modules over here to add additional pitches or change the voltages or whatever it is I'm doing. All right, that's a little nuts. So this is what I've been doing for the last week, is just kind of plugging things in and listening to things and being absolutely amazed by the sounds that this thing can make. And again, I'm not finding anything musical with it, although I am sure smarter people than me could make music with this oscillator. I cannot. I'm making noise. And noise is my favorite thing. So I'm going to split these pulses into left and right ears right now and just make a bunch of noise. That's a lot of noise. Okay, so I think before I move on to the filter stuff, let me show what the pulse width modulator sounds like. So that's this thin little guy, and again, we got a clock here. So you can kind of see the pulse width going on here. The thing that I don't know yet, and I just haven't found this yet, I think. I don't know how to set the actual width. I think it's like just full width based on the speed. You know how normally you could set 10% or something so it sounds a little bit more in control? I don't know how to do that yet. I don't know if you can even do that in here. So now I'm taking some random generated pitches from this guy. And I'm rungling them back into the first oscillator. And I know this doesn't make a whole lot of sense because I'm really just kind of poking at this. So this is just the full pulse here. I can also put it into the triangle. So this is the full triangle sound. And again, the speed. But I want to mix in that pulse width here by using this knob. And now I've got this mixture of coming out of the low pass. I could make it all the external audio, or I can very quickly add the internal pulse width modulator, or roll it all the way and cut out this circuit entirely. So it's kind of neat as well. But now let's talk about this filter here. So with this filter in place here, you can hear the filter. Sounds like a normal filter. Let me get a little sharper sound. So that's kind of neat. If I use the pulse, and of course resonance. So it's not a super fancy filter, but it does the job. And I think the thing that's magical about this filter situation here is that you can get it into self-resonating mode here. And then start doing these things to it. I don't know. Let's just find out. Let's find out what I can do. And of course, there's a Rungler on board there too. I have no idea what it's doing. So I am using XOR into the CV here, which I don't really know what XOR does. But it has some interesting effects. And I mean, you barely have to touch anything. I'm gonna mess with a sample and hold from outside. guess the point of this experiment here is just to show that you can get something that might be a good bed for something else. Your noises. Maybe. I guess I can wrap this up by saying, why did I choose Benjolin if it's not a music maker? And it's the reason why I love it so much is it is absolute chaos. Anyone following my journey for any length of time knows that I love randomness and I love chaos and I love this kind of sound, this kind of noise that can just come out of Modular. So I kind of finally caved in and bought the Benjolin, mostly because I'm at a point in all of this journey stuff where making music is fun, but I got a lot of instruments around my room, so I don't necessarily need to spend $10,000 on eurorack modules to make music. I kind of want to make noise with them, or make effects with them, or create backing tracks even with them. Some of this stuff is pretty amazing. Some of it sounds painful. So why I chose it, that's it. I really wanted a noisemaker, not only for sounds, not only for audio, but for also all of these outputs here that can modulate something else in the rack. It doesn't have to be these audio rate squeals and craziness. I just don't know enough about this module to wrangle it in enough to use it as modulation sources for something else yet. I will probably do that in a deep dive later when I actually figure this out. But man, I sure love the noise this thing makes. How I plan to use it, I just told you. I want utter chaos in my life, and not by dating. think that's kind of it for Season 4, Episode 19, the Benjolin version 2 by After Later Audio. It is an incredible sonic experiment all by itself, even with almost no patch cables except for output. You can make so much amazing noise with this module. That's why I love it so much. And speaking of noise and randomness and all the things that I love, coming up next is going to be the Steady State Fate Ultra Random Redo. From way back in the first season, I had the Ultra Random Analog module, which I never really learned how to wrangle that. But now I'm overcomplicating my life by adding the Ultra Random Redux. So if I can manage to make some noise with that, that's what you're going to see next. So stay tuned for that.